Stop worrying about what to make for dinner and start cooking instead. HelloFresh Canada will send a box of wholesome ingredients plus a simple-to-follow recipe right to your Canadian doorstep. Vegetarians, meat eaters, single people families, there's something for almost everyone. Visit HelloFresh.ca for more info and menu options, and use the promo code CREATIVE50 for 50% off your first order.
Creative Control is brought to you by FreshBooks, a ridiculously easy-to-use cloud accounting software for small business owners that saves you time and gets you paid faster. FreshBooks is now used by over 10 million people worldwide, and I want you to try it too. For your free 30-day trial, go to freshbooks.com/creative control and enter Creative Control. That's creative with a K, control with a K. In their How Did You Hear About Us section. Stay organized and get paid faster with FreshBooks. Gabriel Roth is a talented musician, producer, and songwriter who plays a primary role in the Dap-Kings, one of the baddest bands of all time. Also known as Bosco Man, Roth spent almost 20 years playing with the late, great Sharon Jones, who sadly succumbed to pancreatic cancer on November 16th, 2016. Her final sessions with the Dap-Kings have been captured on a gorgeous new album called Soul of a Woman, which is out via Roth's Daptone Records label. And he and I spent some time remembering Sharon by discussing each of these new songs. Sponsored by FreshBooks, HelloFresh Canada, Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, Planet Bean Coffee, and Granddad's Donuts, this is Gabriel Roth of Sharon Jones and the Dap-Kings on the 366th episode of Creative Control with your host, me, Vish Khanna.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Hi, Gabe. How's it going?
Great. Vish, how you doing?
I'm very well. It's nice to talk to you. It's very nice to talk to you. The last time I saw you, I believe, on stage with Sharon Jones and the Dap-Kings was in Elora, Ontario in Canada. Do you remember playing a festival in Elora, Ontario?
Oh, yeah. I think I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a few years back.
It was a few years back, and I had I believe, unless I was sidelined, because sometimes that would happen, I believe I emceed that show. I introduced the Dap-Kings. It was a great pleasure for me.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan. I got to see the Dap-Kings a lot in the early days. You would play in Waterloo, Ontario, and Toronto at the Horseshoe, like smaller clubs. And,
oh, yeah, I remember the Horseshoe well.
Yeah, just overwhelming. Yeah. I'd never seen anything like it, so it's...
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So this is a bit difficult for me because I have a fondness for Sharon. I got to talk to her a few times, and I guess right away. How are you doing? Actually, I mean, this is the Soul of a Woman record is coming out, and I imagine it must be difficult for you. How are you doing with this?
I'm doing well. I mean, it comes in waves. Sometimes I get very sad and miss Sharon a lot. But, for the most part, I try to really stay focused on how fortunate I was to be able to play with her for so long. I mean, I was making music with her for almost 20 years, and it was the ride of my life, I mean, It was pretty incredible. Very few people, were as lucky as I was to be able to stand behind her on stage,
Yeah.
And, have that perspective on what she could do. So, I try to keep a good perspective on it and a good outlook. I mean, yeah, I miss her a lot.
Yeah.
I miss her a lot. And, it's always funny little things that make you miss her,
Mm-hmm.
I'll walk by and see my closet full of suits and wonder, man, why do I have all these suits? I used to grab them every weekend, reach in there and pick out a suit and jump on the road every weekend. I know I was going to go see her and do shows and stuff. And so it's sad. I miss her.
Yeah. Well,
but,
I'm with you there, and I appreciate your candor there because I know this must be difficult.
Oh.
I want to reflect on a couple of things that I remember Sharon saying to me over the years. One of them, and she mentioned you specifically, was that in making this music with the Dap-Kings, there was a point where I believe she said you decided not to put dates on the records so that no one could figure out when they actually were recorded, when they came out. Is that right?
I think some of them have dates, but yeah, I think the thing for me was when you have to understand my perspective. When I started making records in the 90s, I wanted to make these soul records, these funk records, and the records that I wanted them to stand up to were the records that I loved,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to compete with the brand new heavies. I was trying to be right up there with, my aspirations were to be making records that were as good as Stax and Sam Cooke and stuff. And I'm not saying I ever got close to that, but I think for myself, going into a record store, if I saw some new record, my assumption was already that it was terrible,
Right.
And this is the 90s. This is the 90s. I was buying. So the only records I was really buying were old records or reissues or compilations and stuff. And people might see that as some kind of closed-minded, fetishist thing, but it really isn't, man. I mean, I would listen to lots of new music. I just didn't like it, and this is not that different these days, So, just as far as being influenced by the stuff you love, I was trying to make a record like the ones that I love,
Yeah, did Sharon share that perspective of trying to make something? I mean, I think any artist would like to make something timeless, but there's a certain aesthetic with the Dap-Kings that I don't think anyone else really put forth.
Yeah, the thing I think Sharon never really had an agenda or anything like that. I mean, not that I really had an agenda either, but, at the end of it, I think the thing that really worked with the Dap-Kings was everybody was just making music from their hearts, making music that felt good to them and felt natural to them and felt like what they wanted to do. Nobody was really trying to evoke something or refer to something from the past, and obviously we always, mostly in interviews, of course, but, we always dealt with questions of retro stuff and throwback stuff and, what's relevant, what's not relevant. But, to us, we were making, we're always making original music, writing songs that nobody had ever written before. We weren't reaching for these kind of cliches lyrically or musically. It wasn't like we were trying to do a bunch of, girl group stuff or wah-wah pedals or ripping off lyrics or ripping off, lines. It was, very completely original music and very much sincere music from the heart, and I think for Sharon, it was, she was never trying to sound like anything, she was singing from her heart. And we were, I think that's why we got along so well, is that musically, it was a group of people that really spoke the same language and got excited about the same things, and the same thing felt good to them, Yeah. We had a certain sound that felt really good to us. And I mean, it's a strange thing too, because I think, rhythm and blues or soul music or whatever you want to call it, it had a strange evolution, It's very different from, for example, the evolution of rock, because you get bands all the time now. If you look at rock bands, you get bands playing the same three chords that the Kinks or anybody else did and screaming about the same stuff and using the same, actually they're all using old amplifiers and old guitars and, it's exactly the same sound. You look at punk rock, You look at a lot of those genres and nobody looks at those as throwback groups. That just seems to be a vocabulary that's been established,
right.
But R&B music transitioned very differently. It got more and more produced and got more and more about, computers and samples and people and, producers and engineers layering vocals and tuning things. And I mean, it got to the point where it's so far removed from what for me was really beautiful about my favorite music, which is just the rawness of it and the sincerity of it and the soulfulness of it,
Yeah.
And even the rhythm of it, really kind of got dissipated. So, I think for us, we were just trying to do what was natural to us,
Yeah.
And we're never reaching too far for anything.
Yeah, no, that came across. It felt natural. It felt like a genuine expression, and it never seemed retro to me. It just felt, like I say, timeless is I think is the best word for it. You mentioned that you worked with Sharon for 20 years, and I'm sure you've talked about this many times over the years. But can you maybe briefly just talk about how you two connected, how she connected with the Dap-Kings, and how your collaboration together began?
Yeah, well, it probably wasn't 20 years. I think it was 19 years to be full disclosure. I think it was 97 that I started working with Sharon. It might have been 96. I'm not sure.
Really?
It might have been 96 actually.
Huh.
But I can't remember what year it was. But we were recording I used to have a record label called Desco, my first record label, and we were recording a record with the great Lee Fields, and we needed we needed 3 background singers, and the saxophone player at the time was a guy named Joe Urbeck, who we played with for many years. Great saxophone player, he's still around.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, my girlfriend can come in and bring a couple friends." We said, "Great." So the next day we go in the studio, and he shows up with Sharon, and I say, "Hey, nice to meet you. Where are your friends?" And she said, "Why pay 3 when you can pay me?" and proceeded to lay down all 3 vocal, background parts on all these tunes, for Lee Fields. And there was one tune in particular called Switchblade, and it was just kind of like this weird. We kind of had this kind of funk track, and the idea was a friend of my partner Phillips had this comedy. He was like a comedian dude, and he had this comedy routine that he had this whole rap about how I just got out of jail and I got a switchblade and stuff. But it was pretty funny. It was strange, but anyway, we had Sharon, and we hadn't recorded that part yet, but we wanted to record the background. So we had Sharon come in and do Switchblade, do the harmonies, the backgrounds. And she said, "What is this? What's this song about?" And we told her, and she started laughing. And then she started breaking into this. She started, rapping about, breaking out of jail and having a switchblade. And she was so funny, we just hit record and we rolled the tape. So really the first thing that I recorded her doing lead on, she wasn't even singing. She was just, like making stuff up, and it was hilarious, man. It was hilarious. And I think we kind of had the tape machine sped up, so when we played it back at regular speed, she sounded a little lower. And it was a strange track. And then after that, we did The Landlord and a few other ones we did, and then we came back and did Damn It's Hot, and we started doing a bunch of these little 45s and stuff together, and started doing shows. That was with the Soul Providers. That was the original band was the Soul Providers. So that was in the 90s, and we started doing shows. And I think by 99 we'd gone to England for the first time. So it was a long time ago.
Yeah, she was a multifaceted person. She was very funny, I think, and
very quick. Very quick.
Yeah, it came across in the performances for sure. If you went to see the band live, you would be overwhelmed as a music fan, but you would also be highly entertained by just her banter and her interaction with the crowd. I always remember her bringing people on stage, and it was ridiculous. From the audience, dancing with people. Anyway, wonderful. Yeah. I want to get into. There's lots of memories to cover, I'm sure, but I want to get into this record, and maybe as we go. Speaking of remembering things, maybe things will come up. So, if it's okay with you, I'd like to get into Soul of a Woman and talk about all the songs and maybe your memories of the background and Sharon's role in each song. And it seems fitting now to begin with the first song, "Matter of Time."
Before justice will come, it's a matter of time, before all wars will be done. It's a matter of time before wrongs will be righted. It's a matter of time, before all people will be united. Let's not wait any longer, Though the struggle goes so hard, all together we get stronger. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. Oh,
yeah, Matter of Time was written mostly by Binky. Binky wrote most of Matter of Time. Mm-hmm. And I think, we probably worked out some of the fine points, the arrangement and stuff as a band in the studio. And I think that, Sharon and the band worked together, I think, to get some of the final verses and stuff together. But it's something I think he'd workshop with a couple of guys at a writing session or something, and then brought into the studio. Mm-hmm. And, it was actually of everything on the record, I think that was the one that felt the most live to us, at least at the time. We kind of worked it out, hadn't worked on it too hard, and then we rolled tape and just dug into it. And the horn, I think everybody was live. The horns were in the room with us, and I think Sharon's vocal take, the one that's on the record, I think is what she was singing live too. And we did a take of it, and the energy was just good. Everybody was just kind of on fire. It was a real live, we'd come off the road, and
Yeah.
that was always a band that was hottest that way. So it really felt like a real live performance.
It was a first
And,
take, right? I understand it was a first
I think
take.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And we kind of tore it out, and then we went back and listened to it and said, man, this thing is burning. But wait a second, I kind of flubbed this change, and you kind of did that, and the end shouldn't do this, the end should do the other thing, and we should go down. And we did what we usually do, which is really polish up the arrangements. We really kind of get back in there and fix everything.
Yeah.
And we fixed everything and hooked everything up and went back and did some more takes, but none of them seemed to, when we went back later and listened, none of them seemed to have the fire of that first one.
Right.
So we just said, oh man, whatever, who cares about the mistakes and stuff in there, and we just roll with the first one. So it is a first take, and it's live. It has energy. I mean, it has kind of this sloppiness to it that's like we're barely hanging on to, like a train going around a corner too fast and just barely hanging onto the rails,
Yeah.
and has a really good energy to it. So I think I ended up splicing a different ending onto it. There's a real bad splice at the end, which we were kind of giggling about. I think because I think that take actually, the original first take, I don't think we even hit the ending. I think we just kind of fell apart or something. So I just spliced a drum fill in from one take and then a weird fade out from a different take and faded it on out, But yeah, it was a great tune.
Yeah.
And it's really disappointing with stuff like that, because I think there are tunes like that on the record that when we record something like that, I mean, the recording is fun and it's rewarding and it's something we're proud of, but really, those things are really just setting us up to go play them live, and we didn't really have a chance to do do that song live with Sharon, and I think she would have killed it, man,
Yeah.
I really, that would have been her meat and potatoes on the road. There's songs like that, every couple of records that would just have a certain energy to them, and she would tear them up. So.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful song. It's a great opener, and I appreciate your insight there. Let's move on to Sail On.
Well, look who's here. Oh, won't you come on in? It's been a long, long time. How have you been? Oh, no. Tell me it ain't so. So they threw you out. Now you got nowhere to go. Wait a minute. I don't suppose you might recall when I came knocking at your door. You said, sail on. You told me to sail on. Said, sail on.
Yeah, well, Sail On again is kind of a real show band live kind of one. I mean, the way that we sequenced the record and what we were kind of going for was to kind of, show these two sides of Sharon and the band, which is to try to, we really wanted to do these kind of songs like Sail On and Matter of Time, because they really reflected kind of how Sharon was live and how we wanted to remember her,
Mm-hmm.
And then you see as we go deeper into the record, it kind of gets a little bit more sophisticated and orchestral, but a little bit less feeling like a live show. So Sail On was another one that was kind of a real live kind of track, and I think it was written by Kocheme Gastelum, our baritone player.
Oh, okay.
And Cheme, and he wrote it, and he kind of had parts of it, and then I think Wayne and I helped him finish it. Wayne Gordon, our engineer over there, and he helped. We helped him kind of finish up the lyrics and the concept and move it around a bit and stuff.
Yeah, when you say certain band members were writing the songs, I did want to clarify that lyrically as well. I guess in my head I'm like, oh, they must have come up with this the hook or the riff or the arrangement. But you're saying that when a band member came forward with a song, it was lyrically intact as well for the most part?
Well, I'm not saying it's intact, but yeah, lyrically as well. When I talk about writing a song, I'm talking about the lyrics and the music,
yeah,
the whole thing.
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
And so it's. Sharon once told me the last time I had a formal interview with her was around the time that Give the People What They Want was coming out, and she mentioned to me that she was addressing her pancreatic cancer in songs like Retreat. Like basically she was addressing what was going on in her body in some of the songs.
Well, when she was singing live, she was. Not in the studio, she wasn't.
Right, exactly.
Retreat. I mean, I wrote Retreat about Sharon acted crazy. because Sharon was a handful, I mean, as wonderful she was and stuff, but she was a handful, and she would put, all of, her managers and her road managers, all the people who had to handle her, she would, she sometimes put them through hell because she would just sometimes she would just be crazy. And I wrote that song as something kind of cathartic for them. I actually wrote it for some of the other people, so that she, because I think, and they took a satisfaction, and we got to, we started performing that song live, and for them to see Sharon take to the stage and start singing, don't try to stop me because you can't fix crazy, and retreat, there's no, all this stuff about a woman scorn, all this stuff, they took some comfort in that, and like having that message and that side of Sharon just kind of out there. I mean, that's what that song was. I mean, that's a side note, but
no, that's an important side note, because I think delving into her personality a little bit here is insightful, and I don't want to pry too much, but that craziness you're referring to, what kinds of ways would that manifest itself? I can understand her personality was strong and bold and all those things, but are there examples of what you were thinking of that made it into the song?
Oh, into that song.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into specifics out of respect for
sure.
someone who can no longer defend herself. But yeah, man, she's just that crazy. I mean, she would. I mean, she was. On some level, she was always a humble person. She was always somebody that really was really connected to her fans and her people, and never took to the stage like she was better than anybody. Yeah, but. Sometimes you'd get on the road and she'd get pissed off about something and flip out. I mean, she was, she obviously had a lot of fire in her. And, on the road for that many years, the band and the people around her sometimes saw her at her most volatile,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
She could be intense,
Right.
But, I mean, the thing is with all the songs, any song you write, I mean, this is my experience from doing this with her for a long time. I mean, the songwriting process is different each time. Like, I tend to write a lot more songs that are just kind of finished. I just kind of work on them until I'm done, and then I bring them to the band. But some guys from the band do that, but other guys, like Binky sometimes writes songs like Pass Me By or something. He had that totally composed. But there's other songs like I'm talking about, like Sail On or something. Somebody like Cheme had this concept of kind of sail on, and I think he mostly just had the hook sail on, he just kind of had the idea of this hook and had certain parts of the music and stuff. And we sat down and really talked about what it could be about and stuff. And we came up with this idea about, somebody coming to knock on her door and kind of keeping it present tense, and this idea of somebody coming and looking for help, and her saying, hey, remember when I was in need and I went knocking on your door and you told me to sail on?
Yeah.
Right. But then the second verse kind of says, well, if I did to you what you did to me, where would we be?
Yeah.
And it's kind of about being, about not taking an eye for an eye and kind of being better than, doing what you can to help somebody, even if they wouldn't help you, And I think that's really what the story is about. So we try to find something for a song to be about, But the sad thing is, almost every song I've ever written, man, or anybody in the band's ever written, people listen to it and they always assume it's about a lover. Doesn't matter what you write.
Yeah.
Like they'll say, "Oh, Sail On, that's about Sharon's telling her wrongful lover to take a walk,
Right.
Retreat's telling some guy to take off, It's like there's not a word in there about a lover. There's nothing there about a boyfriend or a kiss or there's nothing in there. But people just assume that's what songs are about. And then there's other levels too, because like you said, when Sharon starts doing these songs live, she puts different meanings into them again, like she put Retreat, like you said, she started singing that. She was singing about cancer when we got on stage, Right. And Sail On too, we'd start doing Sail On. It was the same thing. She's singing about, she was real into the message of the song and about the idea of helping people out and what the song was really about. But on some level, she got up there and she was singing for her life.
Yeah.
And when she sang Sail On, she's telling cancer to sail on, So I think there's kind of truth to all of it, as much as that may seem like a cop-out answer. But I think all those, sometimes songs about a lot of things,
Yeah, no. I didn't think it was a cop-out, and I think we'll touch upon some of the ideas and notions you just brought up as we go here a little bit. And I think we should move on to Just Give Me Your Time.
I don't your promises. I don't need your lies. I don't need your tears. I don't need your sighs. Just call me a baby and I'll love you over again. Just give me your time.
Yeah, Just Give Me Your Time is that might be the last thing that we recorded when we were doing the record, and that was a song I'd written for Sharon. It was real simple, didn't have a lot to it. I thought it was another one. I thought it would be good for her live, because it's just simple and a simple bluesy tune and kind of tying back to like some of the early R&B that I really love, the James Brown stuff and everything. And that's another one that we cut totally live. The horns were in the room with us and everything. And I don't know how many. I don't remember doing a lot of takes of that either.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple tune. There's only one part to it. It doesn't have a lot of bridges or anything.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes something like that's real simple and stripped down. Something's just a simple kind of blues type of situation. It's like really gives a singer, especially like Sharon, a chance to really pull some feeling out of the song.
Yeah.
And it's just in the the lyrics and stuff. It's all pretty simple. There's no deep metaphors or anything there, but just a chance, just chance for her to plead a little bit. And she enjoyed that. That's another song we started doing. We actually started doing that live. She was crushing it.
Right.
And to the point where she talked about, maybe we should get back in the studio and let me cut it again because, I'm putting a whole different thing on it now.
Yeah.
But we never had the chance to do that. But I really love the performance she did with us live in the studio. Anyway,
we've talked about the fact that some of the band members came forward with lyrics and song ideas. The songs we've talked about thus far invoke kind of temporality, time, and also sail on. This notion of moving on.
Sure.
Do you feel like, and I kind of alluded to the fact that at least live, Sharon was addressing her condition. Do you feel like what was going on with her fed into what the band was coming up with in terms of themes or lyrical ideas?
I think a little bit on some level, just because it was something everybody was going through, I don't think it was something that we necessarily chose to address directly, but definitely wasn't something we were ignoring either. There was actually one tune that didn't actually end up on the record. It ended up on the Miss Sharon Jones soundtrack.
For the documentary.
Here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the soundtrack to the documentary. There was a song that we ended up putting on that, so we didn't put it on this record, but it's called I'm Still Here.
Mm-hmm.
And that one's very much Sharon talking about what she's been through and surviving, and that she was, she's still here. And it was very heavy. We almost, we considered putting it on this record. At first, we kind of assumed we were going to.
Yeah.
But, it was almost too much for us. It was a very emotional song for us to listen to,
Mm-hmm.
But in that one, she's singing very literally. She talks about being overwhelmed by the big sea, talking about cancer and other things and stuff in her life. It's a very autobiographical song and very literal, and she really helped write that one too.
Right.
Everybody wrote that one together in the studio, but so there's definitely some of that in a lot of these songs,
Yeah.
But thing is, we didn't want to go into the studio coming from a place of fear,
Mm-hmm.
or obviously there's pain in everything, but we're just trying to give, I think there's a few things going on when you think about like what kind of tunes we're writing, and one of them is trying to give Sharon fuel, trying to give her what she needed for us on stage every night,
Yeah.
She give her just some red meat she could sink her teeth into and get out there and songs that she could really relate to the message and relate to the melodies and the harmonies and really dig into. And the other one I think is just more personal for everybody, which is just about musically what you're excited about, musically what your ambitions are,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to push the boundaries of what we could create, how well can we put these arrangements together? How well can we, what kind of sounds can we make that nobody's ever made before,
Yeah.
So I think on this record you hear, like I said, there's kind of the way we tried to put it together was a little bit of almost a transition from that first concept to the second concept. We're just starting out with kind of the simpler, tougher, more live types of show band type of sound, where, you're really giving Sharon a chance to kind of belt through some of that stuff and really dig in, kind of more bluesy stuff.
Yeah.
And then kind of, slowly transitioning through the record to kind of more arranged, sweeter stuff,
Yeah, no, that comes across. I mean, my understanding is the record, from your conception or the band's conception, is sort of split. I mean, it's obviously split in two, over two sides, but you kind of see the two sides as reflecting different dynamics and personalities of the band in some way.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, sort of a livelier and a more introspective side. Is that one
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next song, Come and Be a Winner.
Seems like you've been wasting time trying to find your place in life. You need to get your ducks all in a row. Stop acting so peculiar. Get on board, I won't fool you. Follow me, I'll show you what you don't know. So take some time to understand that life is a race for each and every man. Sometimes people would treat you like a worn-out shoe, but they don't know that you can't lose.
Yeah, that one was written by Joe Crispiano, guitar player, and I think it was really the first thing he really wrote for the band. I think, and wrote for Sharon, and it's I hate to speak on his behalf on this one, but I believe that he really wrote about it. I think, is it that one or Searching for Nudity? One of them he wrote about his brother, I think.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I really think he wrote about it as his brother, and I think it might become Be a Winner. But he's just talking about trying to succeed and get knocked off track. And I think there's a certain melancholy to that tune, and like something very, it just feels, I don't think we've done a lot of tunes like that with Sharon that are just kind of, soft. And she's singing, I just think she sings beautiful on that. She's very much more relaxed than she's usually is in the studio, or on stage even, It just feels like a mellow conversation between her and, and her brother, or somebody you love, where you sit down and really have to talk, trying to encourage somebody or talk somebody through something.
Yeah. It's
So,
obviously a very personal song that she was able to capture the spirit of, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it has a real distinct sound to it from other things for a lot of reasons. I mean, one was we plugged Joey's guitar in direct, so there's no amp or anything, so it has a really this kind of intimate, dry, close sound to it that you hear on certain. It's almost more of a 70s kind of sound, this kind of real intimate, dry sound, and then the rhythm on it is real strange. Like Homer wasn't really playing drums. I think Cheme was playing the bass drum and maybe a cabasa, and Homer was like hitting a tom-tom. And, it was just kind of a strange rhythm of just guys in the room just kind of grabbing different things and put together this strange rhythm. And then I was playing just kind of a weird, super loose, whatever I wanted, muted stuff on the bass. Is kind of what he asked me to do, which I think I got off a demo that Tommy was playing on. Tommy Brennick, our old guitar player.
Oh.
Who does like all the Charles Bradley stuff and everything. I think he might have been playing the demo, and I think I might have got that from him. But and then it kind of came out of there, and we decided, at first we decided we were going to say, okay, well, let's do it again, but do it with drums and do another guitar and put a big horn section. And the more we listened to it, we thought, no, man, this is the vibe, man. Keep it mellow, keep it simple. And it was so beautiful the way Sharon was kind of singing over it, so we just kind of stuck with that mood.
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorite ones on the record. I think that's a real unique thing in our catalog, that song.
It sounds like it was a bit complicated. It sounds like it took a few different forms before you got it. Maybe I'm trying to figure that out. I mean,
no, it almost didn't. It almost didn't. I mean, I think it's almost the opposite. It was almost like we kind of went in there and he was kind of showing us a song, and we kind of cut it with this kind of weird configuration that we were just kind of fell into place.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then we listened back and said, oh man, that feels great. Like, like a lot of times, it's strange in the studio, I think. To me, one of the things I try to focus on is just, it sounds simple, but you just want to record something that feels really good, And sometimes that takes really, really hard work. Sometimes that means you have to do something over and over and over again. And sometimes it means it has to be complicated and has to be figured out. And other times it comes real easy,
Yeah.
But sometimes you just can't let either of those things get in your way. You can't let something that you think is going to be hard, you know, fall apart because it ends up being too easy,
Yeah.
and vice versa. Sometimes you think something's going to be easy, so you never know. But to me, like, that's an example of a song that I feel like it was real natural. I mean, I think Joey had the essential parts of it. He kind of had this guitar rhythm and then this real nice vocal melody and these nice lyrics. And we just kind of put a bet on that and tried not to get in the way, and it came out really nice,
Yeah, I think it's
Sharon had a
another
real nice touch.
Yeah, it's another example of why the Dap-Kings are one of the greatest bands of all time. And you have a real chemistry and intuition for each other, I think.
Yeah, we've been playing together a long time, so it's nice having those kind of musical conversations in the studio and just kind of figuring out what we're capable of.
Yeah, it builds trust, I think, to have that much experience, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the next song, Rumors.
I heard a rumor about you, and they tell me that you're no good. Are you my one and only? Can you show me? You got to show me, don't tell me that you're uptight. You must tell me that you're no good.
Oh, yeah. Rumors was written by Fernando, the percussion player, and Homer, the drummer. And it's funny because we first started playing that song, they were going for this kind of, I don't know if they were going for it or not, but the thing that we dug into right away was this kind of South African vibe, because we used to listen to a lot of it. When we used to be in the van all the time, we would listen to a lot of this old, like Soweto jive music, the South African music,
Yeah.
mostly instrumental stuff. But I had some German cousins that used to live in South Africa, and I taped a couple of their records years and years ago, and we used to listen to them in the van. And even though it was only a couple of records, we all listened to them together a lot of times in the van. So I think that sound had like a lot of different sounds, things that we listened together in the van over the years, Fela and the Ohio Players and Tina Turner, all these things, man, they all imprint themselves on you, and become part of our vocabulary and this kind of communal sense of music that we had, So yeah. I think we started playing that, and we started playing it kind of like with this kind of South African kind of a little bit of flavor on there, like almost like pata pata or something like that, and it just felt really good. And it was strange because I think for a lot of the guys in the band, the song felt real corny. Like, oh man, this is fun to do, but we're not really going to do it like this, are we? We're not really going to put it out like this, are we? But it just kind of became undeniable after a while. The more the more I listened to it, worked on it, and mixed it and stuff, it just felt so good. And Sharon also, she sang the lead, and then she was going to do a scratch track for the backgrounds because she had these background ideas. But when she did the scratch track, she started harmonizing with her verses, and it sounded so good, we just kept it.
Right.
So all the verses are in harmony. She's just saying perfect harmony with herself. And then we have the backgrounds come in on the choruses and stuff. And it just came together, that track, to me. It's like definitely the funnest thing we recorded in a long time. And I think especially with her being sick, and now with her passing, and with all these things going on, and just the world being rough right now, man, it just feels good just to have a song like that that's just kind of just happy as shit,
It is happy, but
just a happy, have a joyousness to it,
Yeah, the title kind of conveys to me this time period that you're referring to, this notion of being kind of distrustful of information and whatnot. And I mean, I remember when Sharon passed, I remember reading something about how she was really crushed by the election result. Is that accurate?
That was my fault because I mentioned something in an interview. I did a long interview with somebody. I can't remember who it was after she passed. I mean, I was kind of a blur that whole time for me, but
sure.
I was talking to somebody. I don't know who it was, and I said that to them, and I just said it in passing in a very long interview. And it became the headline of the story, and ended up all over the place. And I had to call the journalists back and be like, "Are you kidding me?" And they went back and they changed the headlines and stuff. But yeah, that story kind of got further than I wish it would have. I mean, it's true. I'm not saying it's not true. It just wasn't. To me, it was very distracting from, either what was going on with the election or, or the loss of Sharon. Both things. It just felt like a distraction.
Right.
But yeah, it was true. Basically, she was real sick and obviously battling cancer for a long time and dealing with different stuff. And in the last couple of months, we realized kind of, looking back, we realized that she'd probably had a couple mini strokes. There was a time before a show in San Diego and stuff where all of a sudden she just kind of disappeared on us. I mean, she was there, but she just looked like she disappeared on us. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And the doctor checked her out and she said she was fine. And we did the show anyway. Huh. But, looking back, there were some things like that. But yeah, she was watching the election results and I think she got real stressed out and, she had a stroke, while that stuff was going down. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely true, but it's, I think it could be more of a distraction than anything. Yeah.
No, I mean, I only raise it because I think even with Give the People What They Want, there was an outspokenness within your band. I think as much as it was regarded as this good time party band that you were going to have fun going to see, I feel like there was, would you agree, there was an underlying...
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, and I struggle with that too. I mean, I played with a band called Antibalas for a long time that did a lot of, kind of blatantly political stuff and everything. And I think there was more of a challenge with the Dap-Kings. Well, I'm not going to say a challenge, but I'm just saying it was a different language for us because I feel like, there's something about certain music to me that's, I mean, it doesn't even matter what the lyrics are; it's still a protest song,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
the whole story, the whole sound of the music and the sound of the band and the whole reality that Sharon could overcome what she overcame and be in that position of power, and be in that position of control of her life and really running things, I think that's, to me, there's something inherently political about that,
Yeah.
But lyrically, there's a lot of songs where we directly or indirectly, we're talking about politics. I mean, obviously Matter of Time, but on the other records there were too. Yeah, People Don't Get What They Deserve is a very specific political song about, to me, what, kind of the lie of the American dream. I mean, not to get way off topic here, but there's very specific lyrics in some of those songs about some of the stuff. Even her first record, Got to Be the Way It Is, and Got a Thing on My Mind. These were kind of protest songs, songs about injustices and kind of hopefully triumphing, over those types of things. And yeah, I mean, on this record too, there's definitely some of that flavor.
Yeah.
Rumors, I think you'd have to talk to Fernando and Homer because I'm not sure exactly where they were coming from on that, because it was something that once we started digging into it, it just kind of took on a life of its own. So it's another one of those songs that, like, depending on where you are, it could definitely take on different meanings for you,
Yeah, totally. And I raised it also because you were saying that for whatever reason, people always misconstrued Sharon Jones and the Dap-Kings songs as being love songs every time. And and I always thought that seems odd to me that would be the case.
When George W. Bush was president, man, there was I wrote a song called "When the Other Foot Drops," that was very specifically about him and kind of it was When the Other Foot Drops. Uncle was kind of Uncle Sam, and it was a very specifically political song and talking about him and stuff. And I remember reading these reviews talking about even that one. It was about, this is about a wronged lover, or about some, but it was crazy. There was something about your, all these lies you're cooking up, and what was the line? Oh, your crafty little pencil's running out of lead, which to me was basically about, I mean, I was writing about like weapons of mass destruction and stuff. I was writing about, these lies are coming up on you. The other foot's about, the other shoe's going to drop. You're getting caught in all these lies. Your days are numbered, That's what I was writing about, And people took it as, somebody wrote it as it was about your crafty little pencils running out of lead was a reference to impotence, and that her lover couldn't get it up anymore. And I was just thinking, Jesus, people will bend these things any way they can to convince themselves that that's what these songs are about, man. It's straight. It's crazy,
I think it might have something to do with the genre you supposedly represent. It might have something to do with Sharon's delivery. I mean, you put those same lyrics in the framework of, say, a punk band, and people would be like, oh, well, this is clearly about weapons of mass destruction. Maybe. You know what I mean?
You're probably right.
It's a context thing.
You're right. They see Sharon up there shaking her hips, with these fringy dresses, and they just, I mean, there's definitely some sexuality to that music and to the way that she sang to those rhythms and stuff. Like I dig it, but yeah, it was always surprising to me that every song people assumed was about this.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily suggesting that Rumors was about this, but all I was saying is I know that.
No, but you're right. You were talking about Rumors being possibly about Trump or any of this and stuff, and it's definitely a good interpretation. I kind of dig it, man.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
okay.
I heard a rumor about you, man. It seems pretty accurate today.
It does. It really does. Absolutely. Yeah.
Rumors tell me that you know good, baby. Rumors tell me that you know good, baby. Rumors tell me that you know good, I got to know, baby. Rumors tell me that you know good, baby.
Are you hungry but don't know what to cook? HelloFresh Canada is here to help. Have a whole delicious meal's worth of wholesome ingredients, plus a simple-to-follow recipe, all delivered right to your Canadian home. There are vegetarian options and plans for single people and families, too. I've tried this. It was great. Visit HelloFresh.ca for more information and menu options, and use the promo code CREATIVE50, that's creative with a K, 50, for 50% off your first order.
Creative Control once again acknowledges the support of FreshBooks, a cloud accounting software for small business owners with some truly thoughtful features that you'll love. Try it free for 30 days. Go to freshbooks.com/creative control, and in the How Did You Hear About Us section, enter Creative Control. That's creative with a K and control with a K. Organize your money and get paid faster with FreshBooks.
The next song on the record is Pass Me By.
Baby, there's something that is on my mind, but I really don't want to say it. Baby, I know all the games you're playing, but I'm getting so tired of playing them. The cost of my love for you is getting too high. I'ma save myself and say, I think you better pass me by. You can go your own way. Do what you got to do. You can go your own way, baby. 'Cause that's what I'm gonna do too.
Yeah, that was written by Binky. And he wrote that a few years ago, and that's one of my favorite songs on the record too, man. I think it's just a really, really beautiful song, and Binky has a certain way of writing tunes. He doesn't, I wish we got him to write more for us, because, he's written some great songs, but he hasn't written a lot, for us, But that one in particular, there's a way that he puts together kind of lyrics and phrasing that's definitely kind of unique and kind of his own sound,
Yeah.
And so it took a second for Sharon to get her head around it. It's also, the rhythm in that song is weird. It's like mostly a waltz, but there's a couple bars of 4/4 and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to get too techie on it, but it's one of those things where if you sit there with a pencil trying to count out bars and write out the arrangement, it's very complicated. But if you just listen to Sharon singing, you just listen to the story, listen to the vocal, it all makes sense, And as a band, we're playing it live, I think, a little bit, or trying to. I don't know if we actually ever got it off the ground, but and it just always felt beautiful, man. I mean, that's his song, and I don't want to read too much into his own composition and his lyrics, but
Yeah.
He definitely has some trials and tribulations in his own personal life about it. I think that one probably is about love, but I don't know, man.
Yeah. You mentioned
you probably have to ask him.
Yeah, that's fair. You mentioned that Sharon, it took a moment, or it took a little bit for Sharon to wrap her head around it. Were there times where she didn't feel a song, like the meaning behind a lyric? Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of times, and that one wasn't really lyrical. I mean, there was definitely songs lyrically that people wrote, and she would scratch her head like, what the hell is this song about? She really wanted to know.
Yeah.
She couldn't just sing something. She needed to know what it was about.
Oh, okay.
But
that's fascinating.
But Pass Me By, I don't think was a lyrical thing. I think it was just more the way that song works. There's a really unique phrasing to how it has to be sung. You can't just kind of sing the lyrics. You know what I mean? It's not like a blues or something where you just kind of sing the line as it goes by.
Yeah.
It kind of has to sit a certain way for the whole thing to work. It's a very unique, very Binky kind of thing, you know. And it took her a second to wrap her head around it, but once she did, man, I think it's so beautiful, man. It's a, you know, and there's another thing on that song is that you may notice there's no horns on that song.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was we recorded that song originally in a different key. I think Binky had written it in F or something. I don't remember what key he'd written it. I think it was F. But he wrote it in one key, and we recorded it. And we figured we were just going to overdub. You know, he was kind of singing rough vocals, trying to teach it to Sharon, but she didn't totally have it digested. So we figured, well, we'll record the music, and you guys can work on the vocal later.
Yeah.
So we recorded it, and we did the horns, too, and the horns sounded great. They were beautiful. And then after we worked on it for a while, we realized it was, you know, she could really sing it much better if we changed the key. So we moved it down to, like, D or something kind of pretty far removed.
Yeah.
And all the horn lines that we wrote didn't seem to work in that key. So we recorded them, and they didn't sound right. And then we recorded them again, and they didn't sound right. You know, and her vocals sounded great. So eventually we just said, then we mixed it, just muted the horns.
Oh.
You know?
You couldn't transpose it, or you just didn't feel like it made
No,
sense?
we did transpose it. It just doesn't work the same. You know,
Oh,
I mean, that's true with any instrument, but particularly with horns, like the way one line sits in a certain key feels real different than the way it sits in a different key, you know?
Right.
And I mean, for the band too. I mean, the music for us all felt better in this other key, but you know, it's a weird thing, you know. But this is how these songs come together in the studio. You know, you're experimenting, you're trying different things, and at the end of it, you know, to me, you always want to kind of serve that vocal, and whatever is going to do, help Sharon the most, that's what we wanted to play. And
Right.
a lot of times that's playing nothing, you know.
Sometimes that's what you have to do. Yeah.
yeah, and it takes a certain amount of discipline to do that, you know.
Yeah.
But nobody's heartbroken over it. The horns are like great. You know, sounds better without the horns. Like, why would we put horns? You know, everybody wants to make things better. Nobody's trying to, for their own ego, put add something to the record.
Right. Well, that's good. Again, I think that's born of experience and a chemistry of just playing together for so long. Yeah. We move on now to Searching for a New Day.
In my ear, coming from a radio. Oh no, whether all the good times go. Now in the daytime, all I am is a working fool, and in the nighttime, I'm trying to keep my cool. I know that people say gotta be a better way, but there ain't no golden goose that'll get you paid. Through the hard times, can't sit on the sideline. You know we gotta get ahead. I'm gonna keep on trying. I've been searching for a new day. Some peace of mind is gonna come my way. And if you don't find it, I'll keep on searching.
Oh yeah, that one's also written by Joey Crispiano, the guitar player, and Homer. I think Joey and Homer wrote that one together. I remember. Where were we? Where they were working it out, working out the lyrics and stuff. Oh, I know where we were. We shot a TV show for what was that? Luke Cage.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah.
were in an episode. We were in an episode of Luke Cage, like some finale of one of the seasons or something. And I remember being, in the trailer or whatever between shoots, and the two of them were hacking away, real excited, working on those lyrics and stuff, man. But that came out great, man. To me, there's something about that song that's more like almost a classic Dap-Kings kind of feel. Like there's something in there that's reminiscent of almost of like How Long or something. I mean, it's not the same at all, but it has the same. It's a certain flavor that the Dap-Kings kind of tap into. That's kind of somewhere between New Orleans and the Impressions or something, you know.
Huh.
So, I think it's a really nice tune. It has a certain kind of triumphant thing to it, that's nice. And that's a really nice tune. It's real uplifting too,
Yeah, it's another one that makes me a little heartsick. This notion of the finality of the record, I guess, comes through. It's hard. It's hard listening to a posthumous record, I have to say. I mean, my role as a music critic and writer leads me to try to interpret all sorts of things and find meaning maybe where sometimes where there isn't. But this I have to admit, it's been difficult a little bit.
Yeah. Try mixing a posthumous record. That's pretty rough too, man.
Yeah.
Going in every day, listen to your best friend sing these songs, man. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. But you know, I mean, we just felt it's important, you know, and it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear that, you know, that you connected with it, man. You know, because that was, you know, Sharon always said the same thing. You know, which you hear over and over again. She always said, "What comes from the heart reaches the heart." You know.
Yeah.
And that was always what we tried to stay focused on. You know, there was, when we were in the studio or on the road or on the stage or anywhere, everybody had a very low tolerance for bullshit. You know, nobody was writing music or trying to make calls like, "Oh, this will sell more records," or so and so did this, so we should do it. Like, there was no tolerance for that kind of talk in the studio. You know, everybody, you know, it was all about trying to do something, trying to, you know, just trying to play from our hearts and put our sweat and blood into it, and, you know, fight it out when we had to, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that song's definitely that kind of sound. Everybody's just digging in and playing hard and you know, putting their hearts in it.
Yeah. No, it comes across. It comes across for sure. We move on to These Tears, No Longer For You.
Shall I weep or cry myself to sleep? Oh, so long I'm moving on. These tears are mine to keep. But oh, it's so hard.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That one was written by Wayne Gordon, who is, you know, somebody that's kind of in the shadows a little bit in this whole story, but a very important dude, man. He started out as my studio assistant in New York, and has gone on to be a great engineer and producer in his own right. He's producing a lot of the stuff on Wick Records and stuff, and writing and producing for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And a huge force at Dap-Tone, even though he's kind of quiet and stays in the shadows. But, you know, he's been in with us for the last whole bunch. He's been with us 10 years, something. For the last bunch of records we made, Wayne was always in the studio with us. And he's one of the few guys outside of the band, I think, that is really welcome in those kinds of conversations about music and what we're actually trying to do, you know. And, you know, he wrote this song and brought it to the band. And, you know, the band loved this tune, you know. And we actually, that's another one. We recorded it in... What key do we record it in? We recorded in I think, E flat. And this is a couple years ago. I think when we were doing give the people what they want record.
Oh, okay.
We recorded it in E flat, and the band crushed it. And Sharon couldn't totally get the vocal the way she wanted it. You know, I mean, she really liked the lyrics, she liked the song, but she couldn't quite get it going. So we started doing it on the road, man, and we ended up moving it down to D. So we went back into the studio for this record and recorded it again, but recorded it in D. And she sang it and she crushed the vocal. But then we went back and listened to all of it, you know, when we were trying to figure out what we're going to put on the record. And we realized the band sounded so much better on the first one, the E flat. You notice a pattern here, right?
Yes,
but
it does, yeah.
The band sounded so much better in the E flat version, you know. The other one, it was kind of, again, more hooked up. We had more changes. The drums were following the horns more. We had everything a little bit more polished out the way we did live. You know, it was a little more professional, but it didn't quite have the same feeling to it, you know. But Sharon's vocal was so much better on the one in D. So what I ended up doing in the studio was slowing down the tape to getting the original one, the E flat one, slowing it down to D, and then flying her vocal in off of the other one, which is hard to do, but you know, it was one of those things that wasn't our plan. Our plan was to let her sing it again over the one in D, but you know, we didn't have that luxury. She was taken from us before we could do it. So we worked with what we had. And, she had done such a great vocal take on this other one, on the one in D. So, we just took that vocal take and, stuck them together. And it ended up working out pretty nice. I mean, a little bit of studio magic. But, that's definitely, you can feel kind of coming from Searching for a New Day. That's kind of where the record starts transitioning into this kind of slightly more. Searching for a New Day is the first song that has strings on it, but it's just a few violins, and they're kind of playing these unison lines that come in kind of late in the tune, and they barely notice them entering. And by the end, they're a little bit louder. And so that's kind of what we saw as kind of almost a transition from that kind of live sound to the more orchestral sound. And then These Tears is kind of all the way in on this moodier, like you said, more introspective, kind of more sophisticated sound.
Yeah.
Where the, there's a lot more string arrangements and stuff like that, a lot more orchestra and stuff on that. So that's kind of where that's at.
You made a couple of allusions to the fact that there were certain takes, certain things you just couldn't get to again, obviously, because we lost Sharon. When was this record when were these sessions made in relation to when she could no longer perform? If that's, do you understand what I mean? Like how?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the last few years for Sharon was that it wasn't a straight line. She got sick, and and then she would get treatment, and then she'd feel better, and then she'd go to the doctors and get an all clear, and she'd be okay. And then a month later, they'd find another spot, and she'd go back to chemo. And so through all this whole thing with her health going up and down, and the treatment obviously being, often more brutal than the disease itself, which is really a rough thing to deal with.
Yeah.
But through all that stuff, we were touring, and we were trying to squeeze recording sessions in between there. I mean, our recording schedule has always been the same, which is like, if we're we tried to stay on the road a lot, but if we had a few weeks or a month off the road, we'd try to take a week or two in the studio,
Yeah.
So we would kind of try to pop, and sometimes just a couple days if we had it, so we were trying to pop sessions in whenever we could, but it was hard. I mean, because, Sharon, she did not like to cancel shows. She wanted to sing, she wanted to be on stage every chance she had.
Yeah.
And she would go straight from chemo to the stage, man. I mean, it was crazy. We would go on the road and do 3 shows, and then she would take off and do chemo and then go do 3 more shows. I mean, it was, and, it wasn't that we were pushing her to do it. She was really pushing us, and we made it clear to her, like, man, just take care of yourself. We're just trying to worry about your health. But she made it clear to us that the best thing for her was to be on stage, and that when she was singing to people, that was the only time that she wasn't hurting, and the only time that she felt like she didn't even have cancer, and you could see it. And even in those last performances, she was singing her ass off. She sang better than she ever sang in her life, man. We were on stage just in awe, just practically just watching the show, man. I mean, she was singing great.
Was there? I assume that being on stage was a form of escapism for her, and like you say, where she needed to be, where she wanted to be. Was there anything about how she dealt with this that surprised you, per se?
I don't know. Surprise is a strange word for it, because, I mean, her strength in general was, is just awe-inspiring. I mean, just the way that, like I said, she could come out of chemo and just want to get on stage and just night after night just tear these crowds up, and just sing and perform at such a high level with so much energy, when she was dealing with so much sickness and so much pain and drugs and all the stuff that comes with those types of treatments. So, I mean, but surprise, I don't know if surprise is the word, because, she'd been Wonder Woman to me for a lot longer than that,
Yeah.
And I'd seen her do so many things for so many years that, I mean, I don't know if it's hard to say what was surprising.
Yeah. I just,
to be honest, the only thing that was surprising to me was that she died, man. Like, I just didn't think, she just seemed indestructible to me. She seemed, like omnipotent, like she could just do anything, like she would just, it just seemed like she was going to will herself through this. She was going to sing herself through this. And that's the feeling you had on stage. It was like, fuck cancer, I'm going to sing my heart out, and she would sing so hard, man, and so well, and just connect with people. She was just at such a high level, not just for a singer, but just for a human being. It was inspiring to watch somebody do that. And, honestly, I'd love to say I was inspired by what she did on stage that I was surprised by what she did on stage every night, but, it got past surprise, where she just seemed like she was from another world, I mean, just you started expecting that from her, And at the end, the only thing I was surprised by was that she could lose. I just didn't think she could.
She truly was awesome. I mean, like in the truest sense of the term. I don't mean it in a surfer slang kind of way. Like she inspired awe, and I hear where you're coming from, and that's for me. I'm a distant external sort of witness to all of these things.
Well, maybe not, man. I mean, the thing is, like when we're doing those shows, we did shows before where there was nobody there, or we did corporate shows, or we did TV shows. We did all types of stuff that didn't have an audience, and it was very different. Yeah. I mean, the times the shows really caught fire, and when she really kicked up to that next level, and it started feeling like church or something, started feeling like rapture. I mean, those moments of abandonment and stuff like that wasn't just something she was doing herself. That had to do with the audience, man. That had to do with everybody in the room.
Yeah.
If you were there seeing her show and you were feeling that was real. She wasn't phoning it in. It wasn't like she was putting a show on for you. She was doing something with you and with the band too. And that was kind of what was so intoxicating about it, was kind of like being part of this thing that was so much bigger than you. I mean, yeah, we were kind of creating the sounds and these rhythms, but we were also just kind of on this train that you couldn't stop. It was like we were just doing what needed to be done in that moment, and the whole, and I think that was what was incredible about her.
Yeah, I agree. The next song on the record is "When I Saw Your Face."
I didn't believe in love at first sight. Kept telling myself this can't be right. When I saw your face, I knew that when I saw your face, I knew. When I saw your face, I was in love.
Yeah, that's maybe one of my favorite ones. Dave Guy wrote that, the trumpet player.
Mm-hmm.
And when he first wrote it, well, actually, a long time into doing it, a lot of the guys couldn't get their heads around the chorus because it's, I mean, I don't go weird and technical on you, but it goes to a 3 chord, and then the background singers, when I saw your face, they're singing off a 9, and the 9 of the 3 chord is really a flat 5, which is a particularly dissonant note, maybe the most dissonant note in any scale.
Right.
So there's something kind of music theory-wise that, depending on how your ear is wired, it's like real crooked and weird sounding. But my take on that was, like, when working on the strings and stuff, was like to really lean into that note, into that harmony, and just kind of commit to it in a way that I figured if the whole band was doing it and the harmony was right and everything, it'd come off. So it ended up to me being my favorite song on the record. I just love the again, it's a real orchestral, moody kind of song, which to me is kind of like, that, I'm an old man. That's why I could sit and listen to stuff like that, man. That's my, if I could put on, it's the kind of record that if I'm at home, I'm going to put that record on, that's what I really want to hear. So I think I really enjoy that, and the whole band did too. But there's definitely a sense to the way the band played that, and the arrangement on that in particular, to me, that, like, I feel like the band's just at their highest level, and I think that's the thing about this record, is that it's capturing this moment, to me, that was the band at its highest level in a couple different ways. I mean, as a live show band, and it's just a force of energy and rhythm, for Sharon. Like, we were kind of so tuned in at that point, but also as far as discipline and arrangement and kind of musically figuring out how to put things together and trying to, thin out all the stuff you don't need and put all the good stuff in there. I think, we're at a good spot, and that really came together for me, that song. And I love Sharon sang it so beautifully, man. So, so mellow and so sweet,
Well, we've talked a lot about Sharon's sort of fiery spirit. I think you've mentioned, her shimmying on stage. People will remember those things. But I just want to highlight, as we get into a couple of them, her power as a ballad as a ballad singer.
Yeah.
Like, just no one sang ballads as powerfully as Sharon as well.
No,
I think that's worth mentioning.
It's true, and that was something that I think we were trying to, that was kind of about a big part of the other side of this record, was kind of delving into that, and letting people hear how well she could just lay back and just sing a tune, you know. And yeah, she really had it. Her sense of phrasing, man, her rhythm was unbelievable, man, and she could just sit stuff back in just the right way. And yeah, it really has a sweetness to it, man. I think that might be one of the things that I love so much about that song too, is just kind of hearing that sweet part of Sharon's personality, because she did have a really sweet side too, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't all retreat, you know. She had a really sweet side to her, and she was so loving, you know, with me, you know, personally, man. Like, she was, you know, a sister and a mother and a friend, you know, and you know, we consoled each other, and we stuck together through all kinds of hard things, you know.
Yeah.
And so hearing that tenderness, that tender side of her, for me is really moving and kind of important, you know.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we go on to "Girl, You Got to Forgive Me."
Yeah.
Are you crazy? Are you gonna let your love slip through your hands? Are you gonna let the little thing get in the way of a good loving man? You've got to make up your mind. You must forget, girl. You got to listen to the man. His heart was filled with regret.
I wrote that song about Sandra, from Son and Star, a background singer.
Oh.
You know, and I wrote that because, I mean, I don't know how much she wants me to divulge, but there was a very specific, you know, she's got a wonderful boyfriend, dude, and I'm, you know, named Will, and he's a great guy, and they had some you know, situation at one point or something, and I remember sitting in some hotel room somewhere, because, you know, when you're on tour, you're always in a hotel room somewhere. That's where almost everything happens.
Yeah.
But you know, I remember sitting talking to her, and I think Sharon was there, and maybe Star, talking to her about this stuff, and I don't know who said it, whether it was Sharon or Star or even me, but somebody just said, "Girl, you got to forgive him," and we started talking about it and stuff, and it just felt like it just felt like a story to me, you know.
Yeah.
And so you know, it's something I wrote for her on just kind of on the piano, and I kind of I had the whole arrangement worked out, and I had this kind of real, you know, I was trying to pull from almost like, I mean, the Delphonics or the Five Stair Steps at their prime, or, you know, these bands that had these really epic, dramatic arrangements, you know. So I was just trying to find the most dramatic, you know, the dramatic sounds we could do for this, and you know, just kind of really, you know, these background vocals that go back and forth between real choppy kind of Persuaders types of things, and then almost operatic harmonies and stuff. You know? So
yeah,
I don't know. I was just going for high drama and stuff, and it came out good. It was fun. You know, that was a real fun one to put together, man. And actually, you know, it's strange because one of the hardest parts with these records is trying to figure out what to put on the album.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we usually record a lot more songs than we end up putting on albums, and you know, when it came down to it, this is one of the songs, "Girl," that almost everybody had on their list. Like, oh, we got to put that on the album. And I didn't really have it on my list. I mean, I thought it was a great, you know, I really was really proud of it. I thought it was a really great song, but I just thought there was some stuff I thought, just as far as, you know, for Sharon and you know, showing her in her most emotive light. I didn't know if it was the most compelling thing or something, but it came out great, man. People dig that tune.
No, it's great. It made me wonder if I know Sharon was the front person for this band, did people look to her for sort of life advice? Did she offer, you know, sort of wisdom about how to deal with life situations?
Sometimes she did, man. I'd hear her. She would definitely do that sometimes. Yeah, sometimes, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like on the road, you know, depending on the situation, sometimes she would be our mother, you know, sometimes she'd be our therapist, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes we'd take care of her too, you know. Sometimes you had to listen to her, you know. But yeah, sometimes she would be the sage of wisdom, you know, lay something out for you.
She seemed very wise. I mean, I appreciated every conversation I got to have with her, and so yeah. she exuded.
Sometimes she was wise. Sometimes Sometimes she was crazy. Like I said, you know. But,
she just had a charisma. I think that.
We loved her both ways, man. She was definitely a spark plug, man.
Yeah.
You know, what you see is what you get. You know?
Yeah. Well, we're at the end here. We're at the final song. It's called "Call on God."
You know, your life gets filled with so
Yeah, man, this is a real heavy one. I mean, Sharon wrote "Call on God." She used to sing with a group called E.L. Field's Gospel Wonders in Brooklyn from when she was a teenager.
Yeah.
And she sang with them for many, many years. And it was the choir of Pastor Field's congregation, the Universal Church of God in Brooklyn. And she led the choir for many years and sang with them for many years. And I think in the 70s or something, she wrote this song for that choir. And Sharon did not write a lot of songs. She wrote a handful of songs in her life that I know of, And I think most of them were gospel tunes, and this was one of them. And she wrote this for her choir, like in the 70s.
Oh.
And we actually recorded it when we were recording, I think, 100 Days. We recorded it a few years back. And
that's like 10 years ago or something, isn't it? Or something?
Sure, it might be.
Yeah.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah.
And it came out great, and we really loved it. But we were kind of we'd done a couple gospel songs for that session with her sitting at the piano and playing and singing, and us just kind of following her. We did that one, and we also did Answer Me, which is another song that's on the 100 Days album. And, we were so into it that our idea at that time was like, man, let's do a gospel album. And Sharon was really excited about that. I mean, she talked about it, for the last bunch of years. We've been, and we'd be backstage and we'd be working on stuff on the piano, and she'd show us a song she wanted to do, and Son of Star would be singing with her, and we would, play along with her. So we were working all these tunes. And the idea with Calling God was that we had shelved that song off of 100 Days so that we could save it for this gospel album.
Oh.
And we never had a chance to do the gospel album. But one of the things with that song was that it wasn't finished when we recorded it because we'd never done the background vocals on it. She wanted to do background vocals in the second verse and stuff in the chorus. And then after she passed away, she had a big public funeral, but then she had a smaller memorial service at the Universal Church of God that her Pastor Margot Fields, E.L. Fields' widow, who took over the congregation, she threw a smaller, much kind of more personal memorial for her a few weeks later. And for that memorial, a lot of Sharon's old friends, these singers that used to sing with the Gospel Wonders, came into town from all over the country, came in from all different places to be at that memorial and pay tribute to Sharon, celebrate her life and sing and stuff. And so after the service, we were hanging out behind the church eating, they had burgers and hot dogs and stuff,
Yeah.
We were hanging out, and I me and a couple of the Dap-Kings got together with some of those singers from the Gospel Wonders and said, hey, you guys want to come over to the studio and sing backgrounds on this song? Sharon wrote it for you. She wanted you to do it, and they were into it. So after the service, we just drove over to Daptome, which is in Bushwick. It was, a little drive from there, but in Brooklyn.
Right after the service?
Right after the service.
Wow.
And they put their headphones on and had Sharon in their ears singing this old song that she wrote for them. And, it was very emotional. I mean, it was so amazing, I think, for everybody, for them to be able to sing behind her one more time and sing this song that she wrote for them, and hear her leading them in their headphones, and they sang these backgrounds, as they were intended to be. And for me and, for everybody else, just the idea of having them on it, it's like that would have been what she wanted, she would have been so happy, to know that we got them on there. So it really kind of came full circle, and we couldn't think of a more beautiful way to send that record off than to, with her own words, with the song that she wrote, and with this kind of unity between the Dap-Kings, her family on the road for 20 years, and I don't know maybe the closest people she had, as well as these singers and these friends of hers from the choir from the church that she grew up singing in her whole life, the church that she wrote for and stuff. So, it just felt like a perfect way to cap off the record, so we brought that back.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful story and a beautiful insight. I appreciate that. Well, this record is powerful. Soul of a Woman is really, really beautiful. And I'm curious if you can talk about the future in some ways. You mentioned that the Dap-Kings and Sharon, you would often record more songs than would make it on a record. Was that the case with Soul of a Woman, or is there potentially more material coming?
It's hard to say, man. There might be. I mean, the thing is with us is that we always wanted to put out. We just want to put out the greatest albums we can, and remember Sharon the best way that we can. And this is definitely the final studio album that we have of Sharon. And there's definitely there's a lot of unreleased stuff, you know, and some of it's unreleased for a reason. Some of it's unreleased because maybe we thought it was good or even very good, but we didn't think it was great, and you know, whatever. And some of it, there's also some gems back there, you know. So, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I mean, we're just kind of trying to concentrate on one thing at a time. But
what is the next?
She recorded a lot of music.
Yeah. What is the next? This is I've alluded to this a few times. This Dap-Kings thing is a rare configuration. It's an amazing band. You've lost Sharon. What do you do? What do you do as a band next? Because you work with other people. Question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard question. We've been struggling to answer that ourselves because I mean it's the baddest band in the land, and we got a sound that nobody can touch. And if you know, people have tapped that sound a lot for different things, you know, whether they're sampling us or or having us record their music for them in the studio, or you know, bringing us on tour and doing collaborations. And we've done, you know, we've done all that stuff, and we'll probably continue to do some of it. We have done recently. You know, it's not like we're closing the doors for business, but you know, another level, it took a minute for it to sink in for us, I think, or at least for myself, that you know, as bad as that band is, you know, it's not the same, you know. And we used to go on stage every night, and you've been to our shows, man. We'd start out, we'd play a couple instrumentals, and right from the first note, man, the crowd would go wild, and we were hitting these rhythms, and it just felt so good. We felt like we were digging in so hard, and music felt so good. And then Son and Star would come up and start singing, and the energy would just click up a notch and be like, wow, man, we're really killing right now. But then eventually, you know, Binky and Sharon, and Sharon would come out, and man, it suddenly got so much higher. Everything just got higher, you know. It was just, you know, as powerful a band as we are, it wasn't until we had Sharon with us that we were really at full power, you know. And so there's a certain, it's hard for that to sink in. That just, we're never going to be at that level again, you know. I'm never going to have that feeling again of being on stage and being that high, being that powerful, being that you know, that connected to the audience as we were with Sharon, you know. And that, you know, so that part's over, you know. And I don't think we're definitely not looking for somebody to replace her, you know, because that would be sad and silly, you know. But you know, at the same time, she would definitely would be pretty mad if we stopped, you know. So we are we're making music individually and together, and doing different projects and talking to different people. So we'll see what the future holds. I mean, the band has a certain sound. That group of guys been together for a long time and vibrates a certain way, you know. So it's nothing you want to throw in the garbage can. But I think we're still kind of, even a year later, we're still at a moment where we're trying to answer that question.
Well, for what it's worth, I feel grateful and fortunate for every experience I had listening to the Sharon Jones and the Dap-Kings records and seeing the band live and interacting with some of you. It's I feel lucky, and I think I'm not alone. So thank you for everything.
No, thank you for saying so. Thank you for saying so. I appreciate that.
Is there any particular song from this record that we can go out on that you would select for us, Gabe?
I mean, I think "Call on God" is probably the one to go out on.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the last thing I want to hear in my ears. You know.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. This is "Call on God" from Soul of a Woman by Sharon Jones and the Dap-Kings.
Thanks, Vish.
Gabe, I really appreciate this. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Vish. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
That was Gabriel Roth on the 366th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Antica Podcast Network and available on all of your finer podcast platforms. If you can't find an episode that you're looking for, or you want to learn more about me or sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter, please visit vishkhanna.com. You can like Creative Control on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at vishcreative, or follow me at vishkhanna. Listen to a radio show version of Creative Control on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time around the world on CFRU.ca or on an actual radio at 93.3 FM if you're in or near Guelph. Also, please consider visiting patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to the podcast. And in return for your pledge, I'd like to send you some kind of gift. Ideally, it'd be one of the t-shirts that I have that represent the show. But I could also come up with other interesting gift ideas. Just send me a message after you pledge and we'll work something out. This episode would not be possible without our sponsors, Pizza Trocadero, whom you can call for pickup or delivery at 519-829-2444, or check them out at trocaderoguelph.ca. The Bookshelf, an independently owned bookstore, bar, music venue, and movie theater located at 41 Quebec Street in Guelph. Learn more about them at bookshelf.ca. Planet Bean freshly roasted fair trade certified organic coffee. For more information about them, planetbeancoffee.com. Granddad's Donuts located at 574 James Street North in Hamilton, Ontario. Amazing donuts. Visit granddads.ca for more information about them. And to have a whole meal's worth of ingredients delivered right to your Canadian home, visit hellofresh.ca and use the promo code CREATIVE50 for 50% off of your first order. By the way, if you don't want to go on the Patreon and you still want to support the show and eat something good, use that promo code CREATIVE50 at hellofresh.ca, and then they'll be like, oh, people are listening to that show and eating our food. Amazing. On a similar note, FreshBooks, a cloud accounting software for small business owners. Try it free for 30 days. Go to freshbooks.com/Creative Control, and in their How Did You Hear About Us section, enter Creative Control, all one word. That's creative with a K and control with a K, and then you'll get to try FreshBooks for 30 days for free. Again, using these codes, engaging with these businesses, it actually helps the show more than you know. So thank you for doing that and trying these things out. Well, that's another episode of this program. Thank you for listening. I will make more episodes of this show, again, in support of the show. If you can, download episodes of the program, that helps. If you can subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform, if you can tell your friends about it and leave favorable reviews, these things all help the show. So thank you for continuing to do that and listening. And thank you to Gabe Roth for being on this program as well, because it means the world that I got to talk to him about Sharon Jones. That's all I have to say for now. I will talk to you soon. Goodbye for now.